the 5 years of waiting was worth it for Sonic fans. Although Sonic Frontiers has only been out for a little bit over a month as of writing the script, many people have already been saying that this is one of the best Sonic games released to date. Sonic Frontiers brings a new twist to the Sonic formula, introducing the open zone stages, with each of these stages ending with a boss fight against a Titan as Super Sonic. Although Sonic Frontiers sticks with the boost mechanic from previous game, the way Sonic controls has changed dramatically, going from the tank-like controls in Generations and Unleashed to allowing the player to have snappy movement. But you probably already know most of this stuff. The game hasn't only gotten praise from Sonic fans, but from the general gaming community, with it even getting good review scores from game journalists, although I imagine that doesn't really matter to some. This game has overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam after all. But what about those in the minority? What about the people that didn't like this game? Who was disappointed by this game so much to the point that they went out of their way to write a negative review about it? Just what is it about this game that they dislike, or even hate? That's why I decided to look at the negative reviews for Sonic Frontiers, so you don't have to. Surprisingly enough, there weren't a lot of meme reviews for this game. I imagine it's like this because of how recent the game is. There was a similar case with games like Judgment. Niche games like Destroy All Humans still got meme reviews, just because of how long they've been out for. Of course though, you do have some of the low effort posts, just saying that the game is mid, or that it's bad, with no extra context. Give us Corona DLC worldwide and I will change my review to positive. To be fair though, why is this DLC exclusive to Japan? I'm aware that Hollow Knight and Corona specifically are directed towards the Japanese markets, but she is one of the most popular VTubers worldwide. This DLC pack doesn't change much anyway. It only replaces the sounds of grabbing rings and boosting, and some other tidbits as well. I just finished playing the game. All I'm gonna say is, it's good. If you are 16. Oh, look at this Chad ASCII art talking about how hard the 1-2 S-rank time is. I hope this is the entire review. Oh. We'll get into this review in a few moments, but let's take a look at some of the smaller complaints. Ah, de nouveau. I sure do love being treated like a pirate. It's mid, I fear remove de nouveau and I'll change my mind. You don't want to know how many takes I had to read for that second review. Despite the sentence structure, the complaint here is still valid. For those that don't know, de nouveau is an anti-piracy software that Sega loves to just put onto all of their games. Games like Sonic Mania and Judgment had a lot of issues with this as well. While I think there's nothing wrong with trying to protect your game from being quote-unquote, and I do mean quote-unquote, stolen, it's bad when the legit buyers suffer because of it. De nouveau requires a stable internet connection for you to play. Even if you're playing a single-player game, you can imagine the pain of not being able to play a game because of no internet connection. I'd wait for a sale to get this game. It's pretty good, but for $60, not right now. Buy the game if it's on sale. It needs a lot more content to be worth your money. I would have liked this game a lot more if there were any endgame elements to it. For example, a Chow Garden, time attack, or anything. As soon as you finish the game, that's it. Nothing takes place. Now, pricing is purely subjective after all. If you don't think a game is worth that much money, then it just isn't. This argument makes a lot more sense when you have much better games like Hollow Knight, Celeste, and even other Sega games like Yakuza 0 or Sonic Mania for much cheaper. If you look at Hollow Knight or Yakuza 0, despite being 4 times cheaper, you get a lot more playtime out of it, and many will argue that these games are a lot more enjoyable. But again, it's all subjective at the end of the day. I thought this was just worth mentioning because there were a lot of reviews complaining about the cost of the game. Oh, and also, while there isn't quite a time attack, there's an arcade mode after you beat the game, where you can play all the cyberspace levels in order. Other reviews spoke about the 60 FPS cap, as well as there being terrible pop-in issues the game has, which these affect the gameplay the most in my opinion. This game also needs VSync to be on, otherwise you'll experience some terrible screen tearing. While being capped at a frame rate can be annoying, especially when you have a beefy computer that you know could handle much more, I imagine it's capped so that everyone gets a more consistent experience, or maybe the physics of the game are tied to frame rate, which then it would cause a lot of problems if you go over 60. The pop-in issues are the most known negative thing about this game. The obstacles in the open zone world just don't load in at all until you are right in front of it, which can completely take you out of immersion and slow down gameplay by quite a bit. Now, let's take a look back at Chad's review. I think that the review of the game is a good representation of all the other essays. So let's just take a look at each point, one by one, and deconstruct and give some of my own opinions to them. The story is the worst I've ever seen in a Sonic game. It's empty. It doesn't make sense and the voice direction is really bad, as the characters are rigid and emotional. Most dialogue doesn't even make sense and it feels very awkward. For the story of Frontiers, they actually got a writer behind the comic book series, Ian Flynn, to write the story. Now, I don't have any problems with the story, and as a Sonic fan, I really enjoyed the script writing here. The constant references to previous games felt really rewarding here, unlike in Sonic Forces. But the cutscenes on the other hand, yeah, they kind of feel quite as stiff and awkward as a result. I'm not sure what they mean by the story being confusing though. It's all relatively straightforward, and it doesn't have the grandiose scale like Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 or Sonic 06 have. The world feels empty, and doesn't really fit the upbeat Sonic Colors vibe it normally has. The tasks are very simple and repetitive, and only fill up a very bit of the map. I hated towers in Assassin's Creed to see more parts of the map, but this is even worse, as it goes slower and there's more pointless stuff to do. Funnily enough, Sonic himself says that the world feels empty, but that's just a cop-out from the plot. Sonic is designed to go fast, and in order to do that properly, Team Sonic felt that having a vast open zone would be the best approach. I do agree that they do feel quite empty, but that's mostly because there aren't very many landmarks, and it's mostly obstacle courses that pop in when you're right next to it. I think these worlds would feel a lot less empty, and would have more point to them, if there were 2 or 3 waypoints that you can see per each open zone map at any time. I don't think Sonic Frontiers is trying to catch the upbeat vibe, that's why the voice direction is different. You need to build your levels about going fast, because that's what Sonic does. If you want precise platforming, that fits in a Mario game, as Mario's movements are very fluid and precise itself. Sonic feels clunky for jumping from small platform to platform, and this leads to frustration as other cyberspace levels where they try to mix going fast and platforming, because you will fall down the map and die because you're going too fast. Going fast in a Sonic game shouldn't punish you in any way. Also, the cyberspace levels are way too short again, only taking 1 or 2 minutes to complete. Sonic has always been a platformer game. Just take a look at Marble Zone from the first game. You call this going fast? While jumping in the air can feel heavy, especially when turning, the controls are just very different from any other Sonic game, and it does take some time to get used to. In Sonic games, going fast has always been an award, not a necessity. Let's take a look at Sonic Mania for example. This game has lots of spike traps throughout the entire game. You can only go fast in this game if you either know the level layouts, or if you have speedy reflexes. And the very same thing can be said with Sonic Unleashed. Again, speed is an award for learning the game, it's not a given. For cyberspace, they chose to have many stages with shorter length, over less but longer stages. Yeah, it's mostly preference. I like that Sonic Team is trying to find a formula, but it feels that they're just making stuff up and throw random love at the wall and see what sticks. It's very easy. Make more games like Sonic Mania if you want 2D Sonic. If you want more open space level design with platforming, that worked in the Adventure series. And if you want Sonic to go very fast, stay with the boost formula like the full 3D stages and Generations. Mixing everything together takes everything away and nothing works in the end. Innovating is not about throwing glove at the wall and see what it sticks. It's about recognizing potential through previous iterations of a product or idea. In this case, the 3 different eras Chad has mentioned. If Sonic's team ended up splitting these games using the adventure, boost, and classic gameplay styles, I think that limiting these games to their respective genres will result in much less innovation, making the new games feel a lot more stale. And that's it for the review. They just end up repeating points towards the end, so I won't cover that. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. On the left you'll have my most recent video, whatever that may be, and on the right you'll see a video which YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Again, thanks for watching. Cheers.